Shimmering lights of New York City danced across the dark waters of the Hudson River while the distant sound of a party echoed from the past, and a young curator named Leo Sterling stood before the iron gates of an old estate because he had found a letter tucked inside a first edition of The Great Gatsby. Then he felt the cold wind bite at his neck while the smell of expensive perfume and cigar smoke seemed to linger in the air like ghosts of the Jazz Age. While he clutched the antique key that his father had guarded for decades because it was rumored to open the private safe of F. Scott Fitzgerald himself. And Leo could hear his own beating heart thumping in his chest while he pushed open the heavy oak doors and entered the grand ballroom where time had stood still. Because he was a dedicated historian of the 1920s and he knew that finding the lost manuscript would reveal a romantic mystery that had remained unsolved for a century. Then he saw a woman standing by the fireplace with a warm tone in her eyes while she held a silver locket that matched the sketch in his journal, and her name was Sarah, who worked as a bioengineer but had spent her nights decoding the hidden map that her grandmother had left behind in an old book. While they stood together in the moonlight, she explained that the locked box in the library was not filled with gold but with the deep love letters of a forgotten era, and Leo felt a sudden love connection with this stranger while the suspenseful silence of the house was broken by the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway. Then they walked toward the study where the walls were lined with classic books and the air was thick with the smell of old paper and secrets. Because every famous author leaves a trail of breadcrumbs, and they were finally at the end of a journey that spanned 3 generations of their family. And they reached the desk where the antique key fit perfectly into the brass lock while a sense of emotional relief washed over them both. Then the drawer slid open to reveal a photograph of a couple dancing in New Orleans during the summer of 1922 and a ring that glowed like the morning sun, while they realized that the heritage lock of the Sterling family was finally open and the mystery objects would now be preserved for the world to see, and they walked out into the NYC dawn together because the truth was more beautiful than any fiction written in the pages of history. As the sun rose over the skyline, the sidewalk was still quiet and the air felt fresh with the promise of a new chapter in their lives, because they had uncovered a narrative that the great writer had kept hidden from the public eye to protect the privacy of those he loved. While Sarah looked at the hidden map one last time and realized that the coordinates led to another library in Boston where more secrets waited, and Leo smiled because he knew that this was just the beginning of a deep love story that would rival any of the classic books on his shelves. Then they shared a quiet moment of reflection while the smell of rain began to mix with the morning mist and the city started to wake up around them, because the romantic mystery had not only brought them the truth about the past but had also brought them to each other in the present moment. While they boarded the elevator at the museum, they both felt a sense of suspenseful excitement about what the next discovery would bring, and the legacy of the antique key was finally fulfilled because it had unlocked more than just a box, it had unlocked their futures. And as they drove past the park, they saw the trees swaying in the wind while the emotional weight of the night began to lift from their shoulders, because every old book contains a soul that is waiting to be heard, and they were the ones chosen to listen to the whispers of the famous author. While the locked box sat safely in the back seat and the hidden map was tucked away for their next adventure to the sidewalks of a new city, and they knew that their deep love would be the ink that wrote the next 1,000 pages of their shared history together.